Welcome to Commander Central, episode 188, and today we're doing a Decks You Play for Patreon supporter Ryan Flannery and his Morophon the Boundless mill deck. I'm Max.
I'm Dana.
And I guess that makes me Chris.
I got thrown for a loop. I'm like, wait, Dana's not here.
For those out in audience land, yes, Chris is here, and we welcome back a guest from Monday, Matt Birdie, to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on again, guys.
No problem. Thanks for making the trip to record with us.
Absolutely.
Anything new happened since about 10 minutes ago, since we last recorded? Dana
No.
left. Dana
Dana
left.
Yep,
Yeah.
Dana left.
Because apparently work needed him. He has to go set up a bunch of work from homes for Ohio.
Yep. Yeah, he was all like, I'm getting a whole bunch of texts. I have to go. And we're like, peace out.
Yep.
See ya.
God, I don't know what to do with this, because we typically don't do Twitter or anything on these.
So what do you think? We just hammer this out right away, right quick here?
You know what? Let's get into this deck tech.
Okay.
Let's keep her moving.
Sounds like a plan, Stan. My man.
So as always, we always write to our listeners and ask some basic questions. So Ryan today said he plays in two metas. His home group meta is probably more in the focus category, a 6 on the Reno power level scale. Sometimes he will try to fit in a game at the local game store in the area. Luckily, he's been blessed with living in Seattle, and finding EDH nights is not very hard, except for maybe right now.
Probably.
Yeah.
I would bet.
But the meta can be a bit of a crapshoot from anything from a 5 to a 9 on the Reno scale. He's aiming to make the deck be in that 7 range on the Reno scale, so that was the optimized, I believe.
Okay.
If I remember that episode we recorded with Raphael like 3 weeks ago.
I might have to scale back a little bit of my suggestions then.
I believe that was the optimized because the focused was 5. I think 5 to 6 optimized was 7 to 8.
And then 9 and 10 was competitive.
Competitive, yeah.
Yeah. He says the goal of the deck is to mill the opponents out, so that seems right up something like Chris has done in the past.
Probably.
He said the deck started out as a Grand Arbiter Augustin the Fourth Persistent Petitioner deck, but Grand Arbiter just gets so much hate in the zone, he could never cast it. The change was caused so he could consistently not be focused on.
Yep.
Morophon hits flavor-wise because it's a human and an advisor. Double whammy.
It's totally not. It looks like an Eldrazi to me.
It's
but
a
okay.
moose. It's an Eldrazi moose. It's what Ryan and Brando ride to all the magic events.
Oh,
There you
yeah,
go.
like Minneapolis. Speaking of that, I hope you guys got a big wallet, because
All the drinks. He eventually changed to Muldrotha for a self-mill, but went
Nice.
back to Morophon. The deck struggles to win, but that might just be a mill problem in general in multiplayer Magic. He can typically get 1 or 2 people, but always struggles to hit that third person in the pod. He does have a Thrumming Stone in the deck, but he would be convinced to taking it out if we have better ideas. There's no budget restrictions for cards or total upgrades, and he does know he's missing the Duskmental, Guildmage, and Mindcrank combo, which could be added. He really wants to hear Chris's thoughts because he's pretty sure you have a Persistent Petitioner deck as well.
I do.
So, before we get started, Matt, do you want to read Morophon for us?
Oh, sure. Put me on the spot just like
You're
that.
welcome.
All right. Morophon the Boundless is a 6/6 legendary creature shapeshifter for 7 generic mana. As Morophon the Boundless enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Spells of the chosen type you cast cost a white, blue, black, red, and green less to cast. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you pay. Other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1.
Awesome. So, why don't we just jump right into the land base, Chris? What do we got here?
We have 34 lands. 1 Academy Ruins, a Bajuka Bog, Bountiful Promenade, Buried Ruin, Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, 2 of the Forests, 1 Ghost Corridor, 1 Glacial Chasm, 1 Hallowed Fountain, 1 Hinterland Harbor, 9 of the Islands, 1 Morphic Pool, 1 Mystic Sanctuary, 1 Path of Ancestry, 3 Plains, 1 Sea of Clouds, 1 of each of the snow-covered lands minus the mountain, and 2 swamps.
Solid land base. Do we have any suggestions?
Run all the ABUR duels.
He did say there were no budget restrictions. You're right, Matt. Thank you for jumping that one out right away.
Got there. We got there. No, it seems like a really solid mana base to me. I like it a lot. Being a 5-color deck or a 4-color with a 5-color commander, because there's very little to no red at all, I wouldn't mind seeing a Reflecting Pool or a Mana Confluence or a City of Brass or something like that in the mana base, just to make sure that you're fixing your mana
Always.
Always.
early.
Exactly.
I know what Chris was going to say right off the bat.
What?
Field of the Dead.
Yeah, first thing I'm going to say.
That's why I didn't
is
say it first. I wanted to
I
let Chris
believe
take it.
this deck needs 2 more lands minimum.
I definitely agree with
I
that.
believe it needs to be 36 plus due to the simple fact that it is 4 colors. There is some of your big hitting cards are high CMC, so you want to be able to hit the land drops consistently.
The average CMC of the deck is 3.06, but I still think that's a little high to be running only 34 lands.
Yep, and it's something I've always brought up every time that we do this and people are low on land base. If you're running this low of lands, you need to up the mana rock count. Because it's cool if you're playing a land each turn, but other people are going to be either ramping or doing the mana rocks, and they're just going to get farther ahead of you that you can't catch up. The other thing I'm going to suggest is totally Field of the Dead. And I'm going to suggest this every time until I'm blue in the face. I don't care if people argue it with me. And I realize that it doesn't actually fit the theme of the deck, but these are just cheap 2/2 blockers that they can go a mile for you.
And you're already running one of each of the snow covereds.
Yes.
I mean, that's already in there, and I feel like that's because Field is in the maybe board.
That's what I thought too. When I looked at it, because I'm like, just how it sits as is, Field of the Dead would be just an easy include.
You just slide right in. Yeah,
you.
Absolutely.
The other thing I was going to suggest is you're only running one of the Shocklands. I would probably run more of them just to keep your colors on par. Having as many dual lands as possible in a multicolored deck works wonders for you.
Yeah, it would be nice to know if in either of the metas he runs into maybe a Blood Moon or a Back to Basics a lot. But you're running 20 plus basics, so cutting those down for some shocks or even the check lands from the core sets or even Ixalan and Dominaria would be good here.
Agreed.
I really like Path of Ancestry in a Morophon deck because it doesn't matter what tribe you're playing, you're just always going to get to scry.
Yeah, it was a really nice include. Yeah, I really like that.
That was a mind blow right there for me.
And let me check this note that Dana left for me. This deck could totally use a Scavenger Grounds. Dana, what? What? No, but in seriousness, though, since you're a mill deck, I absolutely would be running Scavenger Grounds in this deck. I really like it. I really think that if you're fueling somebody else's, like my favorite deck's a Lazav deck, and I would love to see Persistent Petitioners against me going, cool, mill me all day long. That's great. But if you pop a Scavenger Grounds, I'm not as happy, so I would definitely be running it if it were me.
Anything else for lands, guys? Silence means let's move on. So we have 9 artifacts in the deck. We have Altar of the Brood, Arcane Signet, Chromatic Lantern, Isochron Scepter, Keening Stone, Mesmeric Orb, Mind Crank, Soul Ring, and Thrumming Stone. What do you guys think about any of those?
Okay. I have a large paragraph to go for this right here.
Let it ride, man. Let it ride.
Go for it.
First thing I'm going to talk about is Isochron Scepter. This is a phenomenal card. Wonderful card. But it only a few cards in this deck actually work well with this. One being Dramatic Reversal, which we'll talk about later. And if you don't have cards that are specifically dedicated for this card, like a large pool of them, I think this is a dead card. Because if you only have 1 or 2 cards that go to it, then you're filling up a space that could be taken over by something much better. Now, my suggestion to replace this to become more efficient is there's this wonderful 2-card combo called Grindstone and Painter Servant. And they would fit right in with this deck wonderfully.
Max, and we're the scumbags.
Hey, I've won with that combo before, so I'm on his boat. I'm on his team today.
Okay, another good option that I have is kind of cheeky. I run it personally, is Crumbling Sanctuary.
I hate that card.
It's a 5-mana rock that whenever combat damage is dealt, instead of dealing the combat damage, that player exiles the top, however much damage it was.
For every 1 life.
Yep. For each 1 life off the top of their library. Now, this works wonderful if you're playing against a lot of people who deal with the combat damage step. Because you play that, and they're all hitting each other, and you're just like, you're fueling me.
Yeah, I don't like that until I hit you and exiled your Nexus of Fate. Then I'm like, you know what? That card's okay.
Another thing that this came across to me, and I absolutely love this fact because you're playing multiple colors, whereas I play blue and black. There's a wonderful artifact called Ashnod's Altar, and this will combo well with an enchantment that we're going to talk about later called... Anyone guess what the name of the enchantment is?
Oh, we talked about it like 2 hours ago.
Oh, you're supposed to remember this. It's called Remembrance.
Oh, I get what you're doing there.
Yes.
Yep.
So with Morophon out, Remembrance, and Ashnod's Altar, you sack a petitioner, mill them for 2, go to your deck, grab another petitioner, play it for 1, sack it off, and you have just this like little chain going on. Now, it's not infinite by any means, so this could, if anyone throws a fit, you need to be like, well, it's equal to the amount of mana I have, so I can't really like do this infinitely. But it's a good way to kind of get the ball rolling or to finish someone off if you really need to. Now, let's discuss Thrumming Stone.
Can I say something about Thrumming Stone? So let's read it.
Yes.
So Thrumming Stone is a 5-mana legendary artifact, and it says spells you control have Ripple 4. Whenever you play a spell, you may reveal the top 4 cards of your library, and you may play any revealed cards with the same name as the spell without paying their mana costs. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. So I think it's really important that we note there are only 22 persistent petitioners in this deck.
That was my note I was going to put on this. If I'm going to run a Thrumming Stone deck, I'm going to up the tutor count in the deck.
The tutor.
Yes, because
Okay.
you want to get out Thrumming Stone.
Right away.
Because with 22 petitioners, I would up that to probably up to the 30 range. But you want to get Thrumming Stone out fast, so you can just do the chain of petitioner and petitioner and petitioner and petitioner. The other thing that I was debating with this is, since you are playing 5-color, you could consider doing it tutor route into a haste enabler. So then you can just start tapping these petitioners immediately.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Thrumming Stone kind of, for me, is kind of lackluster. Really cool card. Hard to play in a lot of decks, because the other decks are rats and
I was going to say rats.
Shadowborn Apostles or something like that. So this would be a good deck for it if you could find the right balance of the cards that you need.
And that's the tricky part, is just finding, because I've toyed around, and one of my challenge decks now is actually a rats deck. And that's, I've been playing around with Thrumming Stone and playing like, what's the rat count gotta be? So Persistent Petitioners is going to be the same route as how many is too many, how many is not enough. And that's just going to get hit by reps. You just got to get the reps.
And I'm honestly thinking it has to be 30 plus to make it worth it.
I definitely think it needs to be more than 22. 30 is probably comfortable. I don't know what else you would cut. There are some other creatures in this deck that could easily be probably cut for more petitioners, but maybe 28. I just remember when we talked to Patrick Sapola way, way, way back in the day about his rats deck.
Ginger King of Rats.
Yes. I think at that time he was running 26 or 27 rats, because he actually did the math for his deck. And I think you're definitely right. There just needs to be more petitioners to make Thrumming Stone worth it.
Yep. And I'm still going to argue the fact that I think you need a haste enabler with it.
Oh, for sure.
The simple fact is, yes, you can get them all out. You can't do anything with them. And then someone board wipes, and you're just kind of like, bleh.
You can if you have more than 4 of them. But do you want to?
Yes.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. What about you, Matt? Any notes on the artifacts?
Well, I mean, I've got me being kind of a janky, fun kind of player. I've got one kind of cheeky include and one kind of non-budget or a little bit of an upgrade include. If you're looking to be a little more cheeky in your meta, there's this fantastic equipment called Trepanation Blade.
Ooh, a good one
Pretty good
from
one.
what? Innistrad? Dark Ascension?
Let me check. Yep, looks like original Innistrad is when that came out. And I had to go back and look at it and go, I know there's a thing that goes well on a mill deck for equipping a creature. So let me read this for you. This Trepanation Blade is a 3-mana equipment that says, whenever equipped creature attacks, defending player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals a land card. The creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each card revealed this way. That player puts the revealed cards into his or her graveyard and equip 2. I honestly, if I were running this deck and I would build it, I'd put the Trepanation Blade in for when people are like, oh man, he's playing a Persistent Petitioners deck, then you slam this down, hook up Morophon with it, and just go to town.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely. What's your other one?
My other one is kind of one that some people might see coming, Rings of Bright Earth. Just to get double the mills on your petitioners. That's something that, it's not a budget include. If you're looking for something a little less budget, Illusionist Bracers does a pretty good impersonation. But definitely Rings of Bright Earth is something I would put in, because, again, if you're having trouble milling out the table or milling out more than just the first couple people, doubling your petitioners, putting 12 cards in your graveyard into 24 is a good way to kind of help speed up that process and maybe help you live through that last player and close out the game.
Very, very much so. So I have a couple comments here. The first one being Keening Stone. That's a 6-mana artifact, and it has an activated ability for 5 and tap. Target player puts the top X cards of their library into their graveyard, where X is the number of cards in that player's graveyard. Personally speaking, from our local meta, I don't think this card is that great, because we see tons of graveyard hate in our meta.
Mm-hmm.
So it would really suck to, Ryan, activate this against me. Well, in response, I'm going to crack my Scavenger Ground so I don't have to get milled.
Or you crack your own Scavenger Grounds earlier in the game and you top deck a Keening Stone, and then you're like, man, this feels bad.
Right.
This feels real bad.
So something I would quickly replace this with is, it's actually in his maybe board, would be Ashiok Dreamrender. That's the Planeswalker 1 hybrid Dimir. Spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library, so you just shut off everybody tutoring for answers, shutting off their fetch lands, shutting off their ramp. And then their -1 is target player puts the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard, then exile all opponents' graveyards. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, and that way you can kind of lean into the graveyard hate of your opponents as well, because you're fueling them with mill. That's something I would absolutely do as well. Just Keening Stone's a cool card. It's a really cool concept, but I would lean a little bit heavier in this, especially if you're looking to make it a little more consistent or a little more powerful.
On the note that Chris had a little earlier about upping the persistent petitioner count, maybe closer to the 30 mark, so Thrumming Bird hits more often.
Drumming Stone.
Or Thrumming Stone, yes. Thrumming Bird might hit every now and then.
True.
I really would suggest adding a Sapphire Medallion for 2 reasons. Morophon only reduces the colored mana. Medallion's going to reduce the colorless, so you can just start throwing these down for free.
Yep.
Then you can save your mana to activate, the Rings of Bright Hearth, or just use their mill ability, the 1 in tap.
Remembrance and Alter the Brood and a Morophon plus that. Oh. Cha-ching, 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 cha-ching.
Now we're in Magical
That's
Christmas Land.
teamwork right there.
And if you're talking about saving your mana for activating petitioners, if you really find in your metas that you're not able to keep 4 advisors on the board, but you can keep 2 or 3 consistently, I'd jam a Heartstone in there. It's a little janky, but I run it in my Lazav deck, and I found that it's fantastic. It reduces the activated ability cost by 1. Oh, shoot. It doesn't reduce it past 1.
Yeah,
Yep,
so
and
it
they
won't.
only cost 1 too.
They only cost 1
Yep.
anyway.
Yep.
Well, never mind that include. Too much of a jank player, I guess.
The more you know.
No, but if you have something a little more or decide to run something that has an activated ability that has more than 1, I would definitely run that or Training Grounds or something like that. Because like you said, Max, you do want to save your mana for activating those abilities as much as you can.
Or protecting your board state.
Yeah.
Anything else on artifacts? So let's move on to enchantments. Matt, how many are we looking at today?
So enchantments, we are looking at 11 enchantments. We have an Aura Shards, a Blood Bond March, Descendant's Path, Fraying Sanity, Intruder Alarm, Memory Erosion, Morari's Wake, Mystic Remora, Quest for Renewal, Remembrance, and Smothering Tithe.
Oh, Remembrance.
Remembrance. I'm going to read Remembrance out now for everyone. It is a 4-mana enchantment that is white. It says, whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you may search your library for a card with the same name as that creature, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. So, and this is where I'm coming up with sacking off a petitioner to tutor up a petitioner and going to town that route.
Yep.
That's
Now-
a really cool enchantment. I didn't even know that card existed until I looked at this deck
we,
and I was like,
we combine
what is
this with
card?
Blood Bond March, which is in this deck, that says, whenever a player casts a creature spell, each player returns all cards with the same name as that spell from the graveyard to the battlefield.
Ooh.
Oh no, what happened? Oops.
And then you can sack them all to Ashnod's Altar and do it again.
Do
Yes.
it all over again.
I do really like this enchantment base. The one card that I do not like, and people are probably going to absolutely hate on me for, is Morari's Wake.
I was going to say the same thing.
For me, this card, I ignore all the text on the bottom. It's the creatures you control get +1/+1 is all that I care about on this card. The text on the bottom, when you tap an additional land, you produce 1 more mana. That's going to cause you to become targeted.
Yes.
Now, an aura whatever on the field like this that pumps all your creatures in Anthem, your creatures are only 1/3s. A lot of times people just let that slide because now they're 2/4s and they're whatever.
And Morphon's already doing that.
Yes. So if I were to run something like this, I would run a more cheap and efficient way of pumping my creatures.
Or even just more of an easier thing to cast, like a Dictate of Heliod. Just giving everything +2/+2. You can flash it in case you need to block, or even if you decide to attack with all these petitioners.
Yep.
I don't like Aura Shards in this deck.
I do. So you have Blood Bond March and all that other stuff, and you just destroy everything on the field.
True.
I don't like Aura Shards in general, but
But that's for different reasons.
I've been scumbagged one too many times with that card. But no, I see where you're going with it, Chris.
I do like this because of the fact that all the petitioners are low CMC. So this card out there, you don't have to dedicate any card slots to doing what you need to do with this.
You're not putting in an instant speed removal spell for it.
Yes.
I guess my only issue is, okay, it is a main. Never mind. I thought it was a must.
Nope.
Because if it was a must like Harmonic Sliver,
Yes.
then I don't like this. I play this game. Don't worry, people.
Sure you do.
What about Descendant's Path? For those who don't know, it's 2 and a green. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card that shares a creature type with a creature you control, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of your library. So he's running 29 creatures. 22 of them are petitioners. 1's Morphon. The other 5 are humans, and there's an angel and a spirit.
Yep.
So without Morphon on the field, are we running the same Thrumming Stone problem?
I believe so. Due to the simple fact that you don't have enough. This would be a card I would have to play test with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how many times he's gotten it out and how it works in his
Because
meta.
the other one is Ripple Force, so you're going to lose 3 cards minimum. that go to
Minimum
the bottom.
R4.
Yep. That's minimum. Well, I'm just saying minimum 3
Yep.
because one of them comes in, the other ones don't, or whatever. Now, Descendant's Path is you're just going to lose 1. So this would be one of those playtesting things that I'd have to see exactly how it all turns out. But honestly, if you're not upwards of like the 40% chance of hitting, I probably wouldn't be running it.
And you need a board state. That's what I don't like. So I've seen a local player in our shop play this in his Scion of the Ur Dragon deck. And he keeps a rough hand. This is like his turn 3 or 4 or 5 play because it's all he can do, and he just wants to get something down, maybe generate some board state advantage because he's playing a all dragon deck. Well, he hits it, he draws, it's a land, it goes on bottom.
Yep.
You start filling your hand up with stuff that you may or may not be able to cast depending on when this comes down. I think between this and Thrumming Stone, I would prefer to keep Thrumming Stone and up the count than toy around with your creature count to make sure you always have something out and know that you might hit it.
See, I'd rather have a card like Dark Tutelage or
Yeah.
Dark Confidant or something that does something very similar where you reveal you're going to lose the life, but it's guaranteed to go to your hand.
Yes. Matt, you got anything for enchantments today?
I really like Quest for Renewal. I mean, that's a pretty spicy include, especially because you're tapping all your advisors to do the mill thing, and then you just load up all the counters and you just untap all your petitioners and you just do it all over again.
Yes, I do like the amount of untap cards in here.
Yes.
It's really nice. Usually I knock people for playing Intruder Alarm, but you're not actually cheeseballing it with this. It's actually built to help you win. It's not saying this is just going to force me to win. You guys can't stop.
This is a two-way card. It's helping you because you can mill, play another petitioner, untap everything, mill again.
Yep.
Okay, pass the turn. Now, is your opponent going to play a creature because they need a board state, and then you can just mill again?
Yeah, 'cause it's different. If you were playing
You could be playing this
Lab Man
in
and stuff like that and do everything to yourself,
Mhm.
but instead your focus is to take out 3 separate people. That's 300 cards that you're trying to get rid of.
Yes, this is definitely should be in this deck, and it's a great call.
Yeah. Do we talk about haste enablers?
I think we should. Chris brought it up earlier. I think this deck definitely needs 1, if not 2.
Yeah.
I was thinking that too. I'm not sure which one I would rather run. Depends on how fast and combo oriented I want to be. If I want to play it that route, I go for Concordant Crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to be more slow and grindy, then I would probably go for a Fervor or something. But that forces you into the red market.
It does,
And
put
that's
you in
the
the red
problem
harder.
there. You'd have
Yeah.
to retool your mana base and retool all of... And I mean, at least add enough where you can consistently get your red mana fix at some point.
right.
Yeah, and that seems kind of difficult the way it's set up. So you would have to... Again, that's just more reps and more playtesting. I almost wouldn't mind like a Rhythm of the Wild,
Okay.
personally, just to make sure that you're getting your commander out. Your commander costs 7. I mean, that's a lot. I would like that just to see your oops, your Morophon got mana drained. Cool, thanks for the 7 mana, bro. Like, I wouldn't like to see that. Or you're making sure that your petitioners get down and then they're able to just go to town right away. That would be my recommendation.
I would use that the opposite other way. I would just be like, put a counter on it.
Yep.
Put a counter on it.
2 3s all day long.
Oh man, with Morophon out, you get the 3/5s. You just start bashing in with your petitioners. People don't see that coming.
And that's why I suggest Ashnod's Altar, because there are so many ways to do this. That
This
just
combo is so sick.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's move on to instants. There are 8 of them in total. We have Archive Trap.
You've activated my trap card, Yugi.
Hey, if he didn't, I would have.
Yep. We also have Assassin's Trophy, Counter Spell, Didn't Say Please, Dramatic Reversal, Force of Negation, Swords to Plowshares, and Turnabout. Opinions? Comments? Concerns?
My biggest card that I do not like out of all of these, the rest of them are fine, and a lot of them are preference, like a couple of them I'd swap for different cards that do the same thing, is Archive Trap. This card is phenomenal in Modern.
Oh, yeah.
I have played this in Commander. I've seen it played in Commander. It is not as good as you think it is. The lack of fetching, especially in decks that are lower powered, like you said that you want to be around the 7 range, you play anywhere from 5 to 9. People probably aren't running all the fetches in the world. They're probably not running all the tutors, so the amount of times you actually get this to trigger for 0 is probably slim. And at 5 mana, I'd rather be playing like Glimpse the Unthinkable or something like that for 2 mana that does a little bit less. Just overall value would be better.
And that's assuming you have the trap card in your hand to spring.
Yep.
Because like you said, you're not in Modern where you have a 60 card deck. You're in
Yes.
EDH where you have 99 cards and you got to find it.
Yes.
Now, Chris, earlier you talked about tutors. Is this somewhere where you'd slot in like a Vampiric tutor, or would you be looking for like the sorcery speed tutors that are maybe less revealing? Even though Vamp tutor you don't reveal either.
Probably, I mean, if you can afford a Vamp Tutor, I would play it. But that's just if you're going to go the route where you want to go the Thrumming Stone hard into it. If you're not going to, you don't really need tutors.
Right.
Because it's gonna put a target on your back hard.
I mean, even something like an Enlightened Tutor would be fine here because you
Yes.
can go get Thrumming Stone. It grabs artifacts.
Yep. I could see going for a Mystical Tutor because a lot of times in a deck like this, if you Mystical Tutor and they look at it and you haven't done anything that's like combo oriented, like he's going for a Cyclonic Rift or he's going for a board wipe of some sort to set up to try to, get back in the game.
For sure. To Matt's point of being able to like protect your board earlier, a Heroic Intervention, we're already in a little bit of green. There's enough green mana sources in this deck. Heroic Intervention or even Teferi's Protection would be great just for that
Yep. And
worst case scenario.
a lot of these
Yep.
cards we have suggested are on the maybe board.
Oh,
So
for sure.
something to try swapping in and out, see how you like it. Some people don't like it. Like I personally don't play Teferi's Protection.
Do you have one?
That's not what we're going to talk about.
That's not the point.
Oh, if I had one, I'd be playing it.
Right.
But a lot of times I've actually seen it backfire on people where they do Teferi's Protection. Like, okay, now I'm out. And the other person's just like, okay, well, we do this, this, and this. And we set up and you come back in and we just nuke you out.
Question Beast with my commander and you still die? Yeah, otherwise I don't have much other for instance.
I mean, I get why the Dramatic Reversal Isochron Scepter combo is in here. It's not my play style. I get where you're looking to, you have that variance of your local play group where, you know what, Dramatic Scepter might be great. I would honestly probably, if I was going to run a tutor, this is probably what I would run. I would take out the Dramatic Reversal and the Isochron Scepter, and I'd run probably either 2 extra petitioners, or I would run, another petitioner and a tutor, or 2 tutors or something like that, just so that you can, if you're looking for that Thrumming Stone, or you're looking for these key pieces that you want in your deck, this is kind of where I would put them, but that's just me.
Worst case, I would run an additional counterspell, like Arcane Denial.
Yes.
Now,
Card is
yes,
so good.
they get card draw off of it, but you get card draw too. And that is a huge thing lacking in this deck. And this is the same exact problem I'm running into with mine, is the amount of staying focused on mill and the amount of card draw that you need with it. And it's very hard to balance the two together.
My favorite thing to ever see is being like, okay, I'm going to mill you. The mill happens, and somehow you untap, and you do it again, and they stifle it. I'm going to Arcane Denial that. The mill happens, and then when they go to draw their card on their upkeep, they lose. Okay, so that leads us into sorceries. What are we looking at here, Chris?
We got 9 sorceries. We have an Austere Command, a Cultivate, Distant Melody, Dusk/Dawn, Kindred Dominance. We have Mass Appeal, Merciless Eviction, Secret Salvage, and Traumatize.
Ton of board wipes.
Yes.
And
A few reanimation spells.
reanimation spells. That's a lot of board wipes for a deck that needs creatures on the board.
Mm-hmm.
This is true. But I do believe you have to have some amount of board wipes.
100% agree with that.
Now, I really like Dusk to Dawn because it dodges your creatures.
Dodges your creatures, and even if you do pump them with a couple anthems, you can bring them all back.
Yes. What's the other one? It's the 3-mana one, all creatures with... where
Retribution of the Meek.
There we
where
go.
You can blow things up, but it'll save you. That's another one you could think about. I'm basically assuming that Merciless Eviction is in here strictly for Planeswalkers.
It must be. Or
Because
enchantments, like you could use
it could be.
It's not being used for creatures, I don't think.
Yes, because exiling pulls away from the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mass Appeal is great because, like I said, everything but 2 creatures are humans in this. 3 creatures are humans in this deck.
Mm-hmm.
Same with
I
Distant.
forgot this was a card.
So did I, honestly. And Distant Melody does the same thing for the same amount of mana.
One
more.
looks like, yeah.
Interesting.
Which you could also run, Kindred Discovery?
Yep.
Which is an enchantment, but...
Well, my guess is he's not doing a lot of attacking, so you're only getting that first off of Kindred Discovery, not the second.
True.
Where something like Distant Melody or Mass Appeal is going to just draw you the cards each time. There's also the one in black.
You're required to get a certain
Threshold.
mass
Yeah.
of them, where with Kindred Discovery, you're guaranteed a card every time you play one.
Yep. I really like Kindred Dominance. You can choose not humans, and boom. Choose a creature type, destroy all creatures that aren't of the chosen type. Also, choose humans. There we go.
Yep.
This is where I would put in some tutors.
And card draw.
And card draw. Specifically, Fabricate. Go get that Thrumming Stone. Go get that Ashnod's Altar.
Mm-hmm.
Get that Ashnod's Altar.
Yeah, you have to reveal it, but you're probably going to win after you reveal it.
Yep. Get the other 2-mana one that I like to cheese ball with, Whenever a player untaps, they mill those cards, and then you go infinite with
Oh, God.
Nexus of Fate.
That's something, we'll come back to that later. Any other suggestions for sorceries, guys?
I would honestly pull the Cultivate. I
Yeah.
understand why it's in here, but my view on ramp is if you don't have a critical mass of ramp cards and you're only running 1 or 2, they're actually dead cards.
Yeah.
Because you may see them early in some games, and some games you may see them late, but you're already so far ahead that it's actually a dead card. I'd rather see a card draw spell in its place, because you should draw into a land if deck is set properly with land base. And if you don't, you're still drawing gas to do other stuff.
This legitimately could be an Ancient Tomb.
Yes.
Put an Ancient Tomb in for Cultivate. Morophon's colorless anyways. Perfect.
Or, if you just want to default to your staples. I mean, you're nothing wrong with running an Ambition's Cost or a Sign in Blood or...
Exactly.
I mean, what is it? Painful Truths, I think, is the one that's got...
X.
Because you're in 4 colors. You've got the Converge. You could draw 3 or 4 cards off of that. 3.
Because it's a 3 CMC spell.
That's true.
Yep.
Okay, anything else, guys? So let's get to the rest of the deck, which is creatures. There are 29 of them. Matt, what are we looking at?
So of the 29 creatures, we are looking at Angel of Glory's Rise, Azor's Elocutors, something like that.
Elocutors.
There you go, Elocutors. I can talk today.
The Electrocutioners.
There
Yes.
you go. Duskmantle Guildmage, Masako the Humorless, Morophon the Boundless, Mercfiend Liege, 22 Persistent Petitioners, and Seedborn Muse.
So I want to start with Masako the Humorless. For those who don't know, it's a legendary creature human advisor for 2 and a white. It has flash, and tapped creatures you control can block as though they were untapped. That seems like a great fit for a petitioner deck.
So, I have this paragraph on Masako
Okay.
about how much I hate this card. At the very end, I'm like, wait, this is actually a really good card in this deck.
It's like when you're like, I wrote my entire show notes and then I realized I was talking about fuse cards. Never mind.
Or like if somebody happens to mention a Hearthstone earlier in the show.
There you go. See,
wait,
we're
this is
human.
terrible.
No, I went off on this card very hard. I'm like, it's not doing anything. This isn't following your game plan. I don't understand why you have this. And I'm like, wait, these guys are 1/3s that you're tapping. Why not have
It's
them?
a fantastic...
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time tap them, but yet you still block it.
And it is an advisor, so it can play into the mill.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love this card. This seems like a perfect deck for it.
Yeah. Mercfiend Liege. Other green creatures you control get +1/+1. Other blue creatures get +1/+1. But you can untap all green and or blue creatures during each other player's untapped
Yes.
tap. Is it worth it?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then you just tap them again.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's a horror and not a human or an advisor, when you have so many of those synergies in the deck for drawing, I think it's worth the fact that it's not on your creature types, because you do get another untap effect during each upkeep. I think it's fantastic. For as much as I love blue, I can't seem to build a Simic deck long enough to run this card. I've always wanted to run this card in a deck.
Good. You're fine.
I really
then.
like it.
It's fine. You don't need to play Simic.
No, I think this is perfect. I think the more critical mass you can make of untapping effects with creatures that tap.
You can do it in between each one.
Yep.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yes. Because it just forces your game plan through, and people are going to realize as you're playing that you're not going super ham. You're not playing a cheaty face deck. They realize you have a huge uphill battle. So, and if they start complaining, send them my way. I'm at WiseSquishy1 on Twitter, and I'll have a nice little chat with them.
Yes, he will.
There you go.
I like Angel of Glory's Rise. It is a nice way
I
to,
love it.
after a board wipe, get all your petitioners back. I
It's
wish
another-
it had flash.
It's another reason to up your land count.
Yes.
It's a great card, but it's 5 and 2 white.
Double
that's
white.
7 mana. That's a lot. So yeah, again, just hitting on that point earlier, I would up your land count to at least 36. Because this is an effect you do want to just windmill slam and get going after a board wipe.
Anything else in the creature count we want to talk about?
I mean,
I want to hate on the Electrocutors,
thank you, because I was just about to.
but they're an advisor, and we just did a show on
Backup plans.
backup plans, and this is totally a backup plan to win if no one removes it. It's also a human, so you can bring it back with your reanimate effects. I mean, overall, it fits everything. The thing I don't like is the CMC on it. It's kind of tough.
5
to play.
is hard.
Yes.
5 is hard.
Especially when you're trying to stay low to the ground with your creature base, but then playing other cards to back them up.
Well, and then you gotta, if you're looking to go in that backup plan, you really gotta make sure you're not letting any combat damage through, because it doesn't remove one. It just, whenever a source, so it's not like a team of 5 only removes one. A team of 5 removes all of them.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's a fantastic backup plan, but, it's something that if you play test enough and you find, maybe you run a couple effects to keep damage off of you.
Exactly.
Any final thoughts of the day, guys?
Yes, I have an extremely huge final thought of the day of this.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm not sure if you are on Twitter or if you're in our Slack there, Mr. Ryan, correct?
Correct.
But I want to build this deck as well.
Okay.
After going through your deck and looking at it, it definitely pulled to me, showing me the things I was missing in my deck. So I want to bounce ideas off. I'm going to sketch up a copy of this. I will put it up in our Slack. So if you are there, I'll tag you in it and you can bounce some ideas off me and we can see where we can go from there.
Perfect. Matt, what about you?
I really like the deck, not just because it's a Persistent Petitioners deck. It's a mill deck, which is an uphill battle, and I like decks like that. I like, finding interesting ways to play and win, or try to win anyway. But it's also something that when you are shuffling up your deck and you flip over Morophon, everybody's going to be like, all right, what kind of janky tribe is this guy running? Are they running Avatars, or are they running
Eldrazi.
Eldrazi, or what, whatever they're running?
I wanted that Eldrazi deck works so bad, but it just doesn't.
But they're not going to expect it. They're going to be like, okay, he's playing some weird tribe. And then you just slam a Petitioner down and they're like, oh, I was not ready for this.
Yep.
So I love this deck. It's really cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's a really cool deck, something you don't see out of Morophon. I guess you do because there's an archetype on EDH Rec for Persistent Petitioners when you go to Morophon's page. But what I kind of want to note is what I've seen out of Chris's Persistent Petitioner deck is the extra turn spells.
Yes.
I think that's how you win with that deck, is you know exactly when to cast that Nexus of Fate or the Time Warp, just because you have enough Petitioners, your opponents are tapped out, you're going to win that next turn or next 2 turns.
Yep, because you have to, that's when you achieve that critical mass of, okay, and it also comes down to kind of doing, fast half math, and like, okay, I look at the graveyard, I look at their deck, they have X amount of cards left, they have 12 cards on the battlefield, 7 cards in their hand. So if I hit them for like 40 cards, I should mill them out. If I don't, then, it's kind of off.
Yeah, for sure. So that is something I would definitely think about adding 1, maybe 2. If you're only going to go 1, do Nexus of Fate because it always shuffles back in unless it gets exiled off of that fancy artifact Chris mentioned earlier.
Sometimes you just got to risk it for the biscuit.
Exactly.
Stupid card. But if you're going to run 1, that is the 1-2 run. Because it's an instant, too. Like, you can always just, oops, I need to take this next turn, on somebody else's turn. Be like, oh, I really need to make sure that your turn doesn't happen before I can start milling people out.
Yeah, especially if they hit them with, like, some sort of hand
disruption.
Where they have to reveal their hand. So the whole table sees it, and you're just like, oh, yeah, no, we have to stop this now, and this is all I can do is extra turn.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Ryan, so much for sending in your deck list and supporting us on Patreon. This was a blast to look at. If anybody is interested at getting the decks you play, head over to patreon.com/CMDR Central and check out our reward tiers. Once again, I am still in pants because we have a guest here in the Dungeon of Love.
I told him he didn't have to, but he didn't believe me.
Yeah, I know what you do for a living. I don't want any roughhousing.
Yikes.
So, our podcast theme is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. Our show is edited by Rafael Garcia. You can find him on Twitter at Ursa Bearwalker. You can find us on Twitter. You can find Dana at Dana Roach, myself at CMDR Central _Max, and Chris at YSquishy1. Matt, where can they find you on Twitter when you are using it?
On the rare times that I actually scroll through Twitter, it's sad. I don't even remember the proper Twitter handle. It's either at Darth Alvamar or Darth Alvamar 806.
I don't think there's numbers in it.
There might not be.
I don't think there are.
I'm the worst Twitter user ever because I don't even remember my own handle. But yeah, that's where you can find me. Or if you're on the CMDR Slack, you can always find me. I'm at Matt. If you find me, there'll be a picture of Lazav, my favorite commander. Feel free to message me there, bounce any fun deck ideas, or hey, I found this really cool jank card. I always love getting those messages too.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show and guesting this week. We'll be back on Monday with a regular show. Until then, I am Max.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Matt.